especially with Disney making this push for like 8 Star Wars series. Fucking how many new Marvel series? Are movies dead? Are
No.
movies dying?
No. Listen, everyone is saying that they think they are because A, exhibition is struggling with COVID right now, and B, because of, like you said, with like Disney Plus has The Mandalorian, all this stuff coming out on TV. But for the exact reasons that we were just talking about, it's why exhibition will not go away, because that experience is irreplaceable. Now, the movies might change as what's in the theaters, but going to see those Paranormal Activities or those Marvels, whatever it is, as a group, whether you're laughing or crying or whatever, together, you can't. People want that still.
You got to see Endgame in theaters.
I haven't seen like any of the Marvel movies.
But you know what I mean? Like, you could have watched every single one of those movies at home, but then when Endgame got announced, you had to go to the theater because you had to be there with the people.
But Marvel doesn't give a fuck.
Yes and no. I mean, Marvel would
Warner Brothers is doing it now with HBO Max.
Well, here's the thing: is that movie theaters right now are in a very tough spot with COVID, so they're not the industry is shifting because of that. But if a movie can make $1 billion, the studio's still going to want that, even though honestly, a movie studio is only like 10% of the actual, Warner Brothers is, I think, 11% of AT&T's overall portfolio. Disney's like 13% with the theme parks and all that stuff. Yeah. But they can still
Disney's whose portfolio?
Disney, like ABC and Disney, the actual conglomerate of Disney. They have the theme parks. They have.
Oh, you're saying the movie studio?
Yeah, like Disney movie studio of the overall Disney, right? Okay. But yeah, so there's still opportunity there to make a lot of money on a movie, but everyone sees streaming as the future. That's why they're pushing people towards that. In particular, Warner Brothers with putting all of their movies on HBO Max the same day that they're being released in theaters next year. I mean, that's partly driven by COVID and by HBO Max having a very soft reception so far compared to Disney Plus and Netflix's subscriber numbers. But that's what every movie studio is being controlled by their larger media conglomerate.
Yeah.
And the conglomerate sees streaming and direct to consumers, DCU, or DTCU, DC, whatever it is, that's the future, and that's what everyone is focused on.
So, and maybe this is what I mean more so, like, I don't think the next Tarantino movie is going to be straight to Netflix. I don't think the next Robert Eggers movie is going to be straight to Netflix. Mm-hmm. But if you're Disney and you announce that, hey, we're going to make 3 more Star Wars movies, and they're going to be whatever, you're going to get another Star Wars movie directed by Taika Waititi or whatever his name is.
Taika Waititi, yeah.
He's directing Rogue Squadron or some shit.
Patty Jenkins, who directed Wonder Woman, is doing one.
Yeah. So we'll give you a couple movies, but like after the success of The Mandalorian and like the money they can make off merchandising, why not just make 8 shows?
Well, they're
that's
doing
such
both
more
now.
of a yeah, but like I feel like it takes more effort to create 8 shows than it does to make like 3 movies that are going to follow like a sequential storyline, like, the last 3 sets of Star Wars movies. Like, they're making the movies because like, we expect there to be Star Wars movies, but they're really like, we can make so much more money just by making these fucking 30-minute TV shows and like licensing the shit all this stupid fucking merch.
Sure, but that's an extreme scenario where you have that brand that has those, merchandising opportunities and that world that you can build out of.
But what worlds are bigger than like Star Wars and like Marvel?
Like
the 2 biggest.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they don't have to fucking make real movies.
Well, that's
anymore.
why Disney, and that's for the past few years, Disney has only actually released in theaters like 7 or 8 movies a year.
Yeah.
Because they're just doing those brands, and each of them makes $1 billion, and then they throw like the occasional Jungle Book in there or whatever. But a movie studio used to release 25, 30 movies a year. Disney literally, I think the last year, not this past year, but the year before in 2019, I think had 8, which is ridiculous. That's
and they
one
were all
every
reboots.
That's once a month.
It was all reboots.
It's all branding. It's their brands. Yep. It's live action remakes of cartoons, Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilm. That's the Disney brand now, and that's all they're gonna make. There's no other movie that they're gonna make anymore.
Yeah,
outside of those brands.
That's crazy too, because it's like fucking shooting your own goddamn foot off. Because Disney's original properties are what made Disney the conglomerate that it is. It is fucking Lion King and Cinderella and Beauty and the Beast and Jungle Book, the originals, that created the conglomerate child bubble that is Disney. So like to say that they're not gonna make original IP anymore is just fucking dumb.
Yeah, and I mean, if you have like Disney and Marvel making this push where they're gonna put out like their blockbuster Star Wars movie once a year, their blockbuster Marvel movie, like what's gonna support like an AMC theater with like 30 showrooms, like in the next
you have those movies in all the theaters,
Yeah.
and they're sold out too.
For maybe like the first week, but like if they're also
Nah,
released on
like,
streaming.
Endgame is in there for
Yeah,
like
Endgame,
a month.
Endgame was in theaters for almost an entire year.
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying because
I bought tickets for the Rise of Skywalker opening day the day of,
Yeah.
and got to see it that night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But no, but those movies have such a long playability. I mean, for months at a time. I mean, in the theaters. But if they, that's a new thing that's COVID has caused a disruption with is the exhibition window, which has long been an issue in the movie theater for how long before a movie can be online, on streaming, on video on demand after it's been released. It used to be 90 days that it had to be in theaters before it could be on demand. And that's been a big battle between the theater chains and the studios, and has now shifted this year. Universal has done a deal where now they can put a movie on their streaming service after only 17 days, depending on the business it's done. And HBO Max is doing movies the same day on that service as in theaters now. So that whole thing has completely shifted this past year.
I just think in like 10 years, like to see like what would be like an A24 movie now, you'll have to go to like a Harris Theater or some shit, like a one screen kind of establishment. That's kind of a bummer.
But even A24 has Apple now. They'll all be on Apple's streaming service.
Yeah, I mean there are certain like
It
A24.
sucks. I don't mean to depress
no,
you,
you're
but
right.
like,
You're right, but like
there are still at this point in time you still have your Focus Features and your Searchlight, which are based on award season prestige movies that get smaller releases and will do like 20 or 30 million and whatever. That like that's still an area that exists. It's just shrinking every year and getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And my hope is, and what I think is going to start happening after Avengers Endgame and sort of the wrapping up of all the Phase 1 characters, I think the Marvel movies and the superhero movies, comic book movies, are going to just start to decline now. And 5 or 10 years from now, it's going to get to a point where it's all cyclical. It's always cyclical, right? So right now, the dramas and the mid-budget movies are all fading away. People just want to see the big stuff. That's going to change, I think, by the end of this decade. I think people are going to get so tired of that and have such a superhero fatigue and a comic book fatigue, they're going to say, where are just like the good character movies anymore? Like I think that's going to come back by the end of this